Understanding supplier abuse and corporate regulations. What you need to know. Explore how supplier abuse impacts businesses and consumers, and how corporate regulations shape fair practices in today's economy. Supplier abuse and corporate regulations. What you need to know. You know, it's wild how many stories are swirling around about big companies bending the rules when it comes to their suppliers. I mean, everyone loves a good underdog story, but sometimes the villains hide in plain sight, and it's often about supplier abuse. Let me break it down for you like I was chatting with a friend over coffee. First off, what exactly is supplier abuse? Simply put, it's when big corporations take unfair advantage of their suppliers, especially smaller companies that don't have the same clout or resources. Imagine a giant retailer pushing a tiny supplier to lower prices so aggressively that the supplier can't sustain their business. Or maybe they demand ridiculously short payment terms, so short that the supplier struggles to stay afloat paying their own bills. These practices might not always be explicitly illegal, but they're often unethical and can cause a ton of ripples in the economy. Now you'd think corporate regulations would protect these small suppliers, right? And yeah, there are laws and guidelines designed to prevent abusive tactics, but enforcement can get tricky. Sometimes regulations are vague or companies find loopholes. Plus, government agencies overseeing these rules don't always have the resources to investigate every case thoroughly. There's also this ongoing debate around whether tighter regulations might slow down business innovation or growth. Critics say, let the market decide. But on the flip side, unchecked supplier abuse can stifle competition and even lead to monopolistic behavior. When a few big players squeeze out the little guys, the market eventually loses variety and fairness. This reminds me of something else that's been on my radar: pharmaceutical profits. The incredible markup on some medications falls into a similar territory where companies might prioritize profit over fair practices. It's not uncommon to hear whispers about government conspiracy theories tied to these massive profits, though often those can be a mix of fact and untrue allegations. Nevertheless, it highlights how complex and opaque these corporate dealings can be. So why should you care about supplier abuse? Well, it affects the quality and availability of goods you depend on, from groceries to electronics and beyond. Suppliers who can't survive tough corporate demands might cut corners or go out of business altogether, leaving consumers with fewer choices and sometimes higher prices. And on a bigger scale, it impacts jobs, local economies, and even global trade relationships. If this sounds overwhelming, here's the kicker. Some companies are stepping up to do better. Conscious consumerism and growing public pressure are pushing big corporations toward more transparent and fair supplier relationships. Meanwhile, advocacy groups and watchdog organizations are calling out harmful practices and encouraging governments to enforce regulations more rigorously. For those interested in seeing these ideas explored in a thrilling and engaging way, I highly recommend checking out The Ultimate Frame by Andrew M. Semple. This novel weaves a gripping story that touches on themes like corporate greed, power struggles, and the battle for justice, perfectly capturing the tension underlying many real-world issues like supplier abuse. Discover this thrilling novel by Andrew M. Semple today. Follow the link to https://bookauthor.com and experience a captivating story that sheds light on the darker corners of corporate dealings, all while keeping you hooked from start to finish.